The Soviet soldiers didn't fear the dark, they feared the snow. They whispered his name in terror, Belaya Smert, the White Death. A ghost that didn't haunt the night, but hunted them in broad daylight. Imagine, it is 1939. You are a Soviet soldier marching through the frozen forests of Finland. The temperature is minus 40 degrees. Your eyelashes are freezing shut. You are surrounded by 160,000 of comrades, tanks, and artillery. You should feel safe. You are the invader, the giant, the superpower. But you are terrified. You are shaking, and it is not just from the cold. You are shaking because you know he is out there. You cannot see him, you cannot hear him, but you know he is watching. Every time a twig snaps, you flinch. Every time the wind howls, you freeze. And then it happens. The man standing right next to you, the man you were just sharing a cigarette with, suddenly drops into the snow. There was no gunshot, no flash of light, no smoke, just a small, dark hole in his neck. He is dead before he hits the ground. You dive for cover, screaming for the medics, firing your machine gun blindly into the white trees. But there is nothing there, just the snow, just the cold. You have just entered the hunting ground of Simo Häyhä, a man who was not a soldier but a farmer, a man who stood only 5 feet tall, a man who would go on to become the deadliest sniper in the history of human warfare. This is the story of how one invisible man brought an entire army to its knees. To truly understand the nightmare of the White Death, we must first understand the impossible war that created him. It was November 1939. The Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, decided to invade its tiny neighbor, Finland. On paper, this war should have lasted a week. It was a classic case of David versus Goliath. The Soviets sent nearly 1 million men, 6,000 tanks, and thousands of aircraft. Finland, in comparison, had almost nothing. They had no tanks, barely any air force, and their soldiers were running out of ammunition. The world watched, expecting Finland to be crushed instantly. But the Soviets made a fatal mistake. They attacked in the middle of winter. And not just any winter, this was one of the coldest winters in recorded history, with temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees. The Soviet soldiers were wearing dark brown uniforms that stood out against the white snow like targets in a shooting gallery. They moved in large, noisy groups, sticking to the main roads because the forests were too deep. They were loud, they were disorganized, and they were freezing to death. And waiting for them in the shadows of the forest were the Finns. The Finnish soldiers didn't fight like an army, they fought like ghosts. They wore pure white camouflage from head to toe. They moved silently on skis, striking fast and vanishing before the enemy could react. And the deadliest of them all was Simo Häyhä. Before the war, Simo was just a mild-mannered farmer and hunter. He lived a quiet life in the village of Rautjärvi, close to the Russian border. He spent his days farming the land and his weekends entering local shooting competitions. He was known for his patience and his incredible accuracy, but he was a man of few words. He wasn't aggressive, he wasn't violent. But when the invasion began, Simo grabbed his rifle, a simple, iron-sighted Mosin Nagant, and walked into the forest. He didn't do it for glory, he didn't do it for hate, he did it because it was his job. He was assigned to the Kola riverfront, a place that would later be known as the Killer Hill. The odds here were suicidal. At times, a handful of Finnish soldiers held off thousands of Russians. But Simo turned the forest into his personal weapon. His tactics were so unique and so dangerous that they have never been replicated. Most snipers in World War II used telescopic scopes to see their targets from far away. A scope gives you distance, but it comes with a price. To look through a scope, a sniper has to raise his head slightly higher, which exposes him to the enemy. Worse, the glass lens of a scope can catch the sunlight, creating a glint or a flash that reveals the sniper's position. Simo knew this. He knew that one flash of light meant death. So, he refused to use a scope. He used only the iron sights, the small metal notches on the barrel of his gun. This meant he had to get closer to the enemy, sometimes within just a few hundred meters. It was incredibly dangerous, but it made him invisible. He became a master of camouflage. He would dress in layers of white, covering every inch of his body. Before setting up his position, he would pour water onto the snow in front of his rifle barrel. This froze the snow into hard ice, so that when he fired his gun, the muzzle blast wouldn't kick up a cloud of loose snow powder. A puff of snow would have given away his location instantly, so he eliminated it. But his most insane tactic was for his breath. In minus 40 degrees, every breath you take creates a cloud of white steam. To stop this, Simo would pack handfuls of snow into his own mouth. He would keep the snow there while he waited, cooling his mouth down so that his breath would not be visible. He would lie there for hours, motionless, buried in a snowbank, waiting for a Soviet officer to make a mistake. And when he pulled the trigger, he never missed. The results were horrifying. In less than 100 days of combat, Simo Häyhä is credited with 505 confirmed kills. Let that number sink in for a moment. 505 lives taken by one single man. That averages out to more than 5 kills every single day. On one particularly deadly day just before Christmas, he reportedly killed 25 men in a single 24-hour period. He was killing them faster than they could be replaced. The psychological impact on the Soviet army was devastating. They weren't just losing men, they were losing their minds. Officers were terrified to give orders. Soldiers refused to leave their tents. They started calling him Belaya Smert, the White Death. The Soviet commanders became obsessed with killing him. They put a bounty on his head. They sent their own best snipers to hunt him down in sniper duels. Simo killed them all. They sent entire squads of infantry sweeping through the woods just to find this one farmer. He evaded them every time, slipping away on his skis like a phantom. In sheer desperation, the Soviets began calling in massive artillery strikes. They would carpet bomb entire sections of the forest where they thought Simo might be hiding. Shrapnel would tear the trees apart. Explosions would rock the ground, but when the smoke cleared, Simo would just shake the dust off his coat, check his rifle, and resume hunting. He seemed unkillable. He seemed like a supernatural force, but even legends bleed. The war was dragging on, and the sheer number of Soviet troops was beginning to overwhelm the brave Finns. On the 6th of March 1940, Simo was in a fierce firefight. The Soviets were using exploding bullets, illegal ammunition designed to cause maximum damage. Simo had already killed 40 men that day, but his luck finally ran out. A Soviet soldier spotted the muzzle flash of Simo's gun in the chaos of battle and fired blindly. The bullet struck Simo directly in the jaw. It was a devastating hit. The exploding bullet tore through his lower face, blowing off his entire left cheek and crushing his jawbone. He fell into the snow, unconscious, bleeding out in the frozen forest. His fellow soldiers found him hours later. When they dragged him onto the rescue sled, one of them described him saying half his face was missing. They thought he was dead. They placed him on a pile of bodies destined for the grave. But then, a miracle happened. Someone noticed a leg twitch. He was alive, but he was in a deep coma. For 1 week, Simo lay on the edge of death, fighting his own personal war in the darkness of a field hospital. And then, the timing of history played its final trick. On March the 13th, 1940, peace was declared. The Winter War was officially over. Finland had lost some territory, but they had kept their independence and humiliated the Soviet Union. And on that exact same day, at the exact moment peace was announced, Simo Häyhä opened his eyes. He had survived the war. He endured 26 agonizing surgeries to rebuild his face. His jaw was reconstructed from a piece of his hip bone. He was permanently disfigured, his face twisted by the scars of war, but he was alive. He lived for another 62 years. After the war, Simo didn't write books about his kills. He didn't brag in bars. He didn't seek fame. He simply went back to his farm. He lived a quiet, solitary life, breeding dogs and hunting moose in the very same forests where he had once hunted men. He became a successful moose hunter, and ironically, he even went hunting with the president of Finland years later. When people asked him the secret of his shooting, he gave a simple 2-word answer: practice. When asked if he felt regret for killing so many people, he famously said, "I only did what I was told to do, as well as I could." Simo Häyhä died in 2002 at the ripe old age of 96. He lived longer than the Soviet Union itself. In an era of high-tech warfare where we rely on drones, satellites, and missiles, the story of the White Death reminds us of a chilling truth. The deadliest weapon on the battlefield is not a machine. It is not a tank. It is a single human being with an iron will, lying in the snow, waiting for the perfect shot. This was the story of the White Death. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories of war and survival. The past is full of ghosts, and we are just getting started.